Hi, I'm Vicky, the Carpenter's Daughter. Welcome back to, back to the plasterboard, the tapered plasterboard. Now, a few weeks ago, in fact, it was late last year, that's 2023, I replaced all the missing plasterboard because this place had a leak, flooded the property, and just left it all exposed. So that is back, but I purposely went for tapered plasterboard because I didn't want to get a plasterer in. And hopefully I'll have some fun and you get some entertainment of me taping and mudding it. So I'm just going to do the butt joins, the tapered joins. Oh yeah, and I've got to obviously fill all of the screw holes. And once it's sanded back, then hopefully we can just paint it and it'll look normal. You might think I'm a stupid for doing this. Well, I'm not plastering a whole area. I know how difficult it is to do that. But areas on a ceiling where the lights aren't reflecting up, hopefully I can get away with just doing it DIY. So the first thing I'm going to do is take your recommendations, and that is to use a PVA solution to run it along the indentation area, just so my scrim tape adheres better. So once the PVA solution has dried, I'll be putting that up around the chamfered edges, which are these just here. But for where it's completely flat, which are the butt joins, I'll be using, where is it? I'll just be using plasterboard tape, which is a thickish paper. It's not as thin as you think. It's thicker than regular printer paper. Oh, and I also want to run PVA solution along the top of the wall where it's exposed plaster, because I don't want that to be porous when I do put a filler on top, and then I can carry on with this tape. By the way, this tape does have a crease. It's got a corner fold in the middle. So I'll be folding that up once I've torn it up and sticking it on the filler up there. So this tape is to cover any gaps between the wall and the plasterboard, which you can see. Hopefully that'll minimise any drafts and give it a more pristine finish if I don't want to add coving, but I do like coving. So you might have noticed I've done some work without you, and I'm so sorry, and I feel really guilty. But I wasn't allowed to film anything because I actually had ITV round the other day to film me doing bits of it. But what I'd done was put my fibre tape along the join all the way from one end to the other. Then I did some mix and started filling over there. But then I had to quickly drop tools to start filming something else. And then when I came back to the mix, it was about to go off. So I quickly just filled all the screw holes. Anyway, let's just forget any of that ever happened, and I'm going to show you what I showed ITV. So we're going to put some fibre tape on the tapered joins from this end to the other. Watch me back. I wonder what it'd be like doing this on stilts. Let's pull that down. Oh! And don't forget, this is about 2 inches tapered here. So when I get my 6-inch blade, I can go along it and smooth it all out if I've got enough filler on there. Much easier going this way. So you might not be able to see it, but I've got one tapered edge left in this very awkward end. So while I've got the mesh in my hand, I'm going to tape it all up. But for this one, I also need to put some paper corner tape in the corner for a smooth finish and to try and stop any drafts. It's a bit harder to see this one, and it's not good for the neck. After reading reviews, I chose Fibre Tape Extreme, which is meant to stick to plasterboard a lot better. If needed, I'll leave links to everything that I use below. Now I'm about to mix my filler, which has got a 60-minute working time, and I can't work super fast. So we're going to go with this mesh taping joint first, and then we're going to leave it to dry. And then I'm going to work on these. And the reason I'm going to do this after is I want this to be rigid and flat by the time I add filler for this. I'm making already. So I want to talk about choices here. I've gone for the Easy Fill 60, which is a powder I can mix myself, and it's better value for money. And I've got water in here first, and then I'm going to add it in. I've already weighed it out. Yes, I'm not ashamed to say I use some kitchen scales. That's courtesy of tastyvicky.com, my food blog. And because I'm working in smaller batches, I've gone for 500 grams of the powder with 325 millilitres of water. Or if you've got a little bit more money to spend and you didn't want the faff of this, you could go for a ready mix joint and skim. And I have this because I will be comparing it on other areas in the house where we do have cracked plaster on the plasterboard. Now I've got the water in here already, and then I'm going to add the powder because it's going to be easier to mix then. This time, although it's a small quantity, I'm still going to go with a paddle. I did mix it the other day with a palette knife, but the sharp edges of this can scrape the inside of the bowl, leaving plastic curly-whirly bits in your mix, and you're picking it out constantly from your filler. I don't want that again. So let's put that to one side. So I'm going to add a little bit at a time and give a mix. Right, last bit's going in. Because I'm only filling the tapered joints first, I'm not adding extra water as I would do for the paper tape. So before I use that, I just want to soak my tools because I don't want that setting on there. To apply, I'm going to put some Easy Fill on my plasterer's hook, and I'm going to apply it with my 6-inch filling knife. Now this is 6-inch because when I do fill it, it's longer than the tapered joint here. So I'm going to go filling as much as I can there, and I've got to try and get as much as I can on, and then I can go like that to hopefully get a smooth finish, and then put any excess back on here. I'm not a professional, I'm just hoping it goes as swimmingly as that. So I've got some goggles as well, so I don't want this in my eyes. If it goes in my clothes, it goes in my clothes. And I'm trying to avoid scraping the inside of this bucket. Right, we're going to go for it. Oh, it's like cream. Oh, what a nice... You know what? Definitely use a paddle. It's so much nicer to work with. So much nicer. The batch is far too small. I may as well use most of the batch, then straighten it all out and use any other bits I've got to fill any voids. If I see any bits, I'm going to take them off quickly. It's arm-achy work. Oh, do you see that? You see this? This is what happens. Bit of plastic from the bucket. Right, let's go back to the start. And that's because I ran out of mix. Now I'm going back to where I started, smoothing the filler from one end of the wall with the hope that I'd have enough surplus to finish where I left off loading it. And taking off any excess and put it onto my hook. I'm not applying much pressure because if I do, the blade will curve. I'm very happy with how this is going. There's a little bit there that I know I need to fill because I've got a bit of a void there. So let's just go over that again. So right now I'm having to do even more voids. I'm also quite relieved that I didn't go for a bigger mix. I think the mix was drying due to the time it took me to get to the other end, but I'm sure this method would work a lot better if your wall wasn't as long. It turns out I had enough, but this end is awkward. I'm getting to meet. Oh, and another piece of plastic. So I've just finished the first one and I was surprised it actually got me to the very end with that same mix. So now I'm going to do another mix and go to there. And I know that I've probably got to fill some over the top of the existing stuff that I did the other day. If I've got any spare though, I think I'm going to build it up over there. I would rather use browning, but it would cost about 15 quid for one bag for that little area. So I've already PVA'd it. I'm just going to try and fill it. For this tapered joint, I decided to fill a bit, smooth a bit, fill a bit, and repeat. Apologies that I don't seem to have any footage, but I did go over this is what I made earlier bit from the other day. So it's another day and I've left them to dry, and I just want to point something out. This is the first tapered joint that I showed filling, and I filled it all the way from one side to the other, and then I smoothed it out from one side to the other. But with this one, I did it as I went. I filled it, smoothed it out. Filled it again, smoothed it out. You know, you get the gist. And I went all the way to the back to meet where I did show with a camera crew the other day. This is the better side. The second method is definitely the better finish. So I'm going to sand both now, but I've got a feeling This one with the slight ripples, I'm going to have to probably sand that and fill it again. To sand though, I haven't bought a pole sander. I've just got 120 grit on this, and I know I can reach it when I stand on my workmate thing. Pay attention definitely as well to the outside bit because I can smooth it out. After I've done that, I'll see where I need to top anything up. I'm going to get my goggles and mask on. To avoid any dips, I highly recommend not sanding too much in the centre, although it is tempting because you then might find you have to fill it more. I'm using a 120 grit fine sandpaper to smooth things out, and I'm just generally doing my best to ensure that there's no texture by running my hand over it while I keep sanding. Okay, so let's have a look at the work. So this is the second strip that I did with the smoother technique, and it is sanded so much better. There's the odd little thing. So what I'm going to do now is add some filler, but the other side, there's definitely a few more. Rather than the better bits, let's find some bad bits. So another bit there, there, some there. There, okay, there's another one. Hopefully you can see. So yeah, I'm just going to do that now with ready mix. I'm not going to make a whole batch. I've accidentally turned this gimbal onto tracking mode. This could work out. Right, how do I get you to stay on? So I'm just going to grab this. Oh, don't lose me. Oh, it's good this. I've got just over a 1 inch filling knife and just over a 2 inch filling knife. I want it close by me just in case I realise I prefer the other. Hey, who needs a cameraman? So I've now sanded the main two lines again after my second slight fill, but now I want to tackle this bit over here. Now I've been driving myself mad thinking about the way to do this because I know I've got my fibre tape there and I've got to fill that smooth, and then I've also got to put a paper corner tape. Now this is the tape here, there's a fold there and I need to corner it, and then by the time I've filled the wall as well, I've got to press it on and go over it. Now there's only a slight dip there for the tapered edge, so I'm considering doing it at the same time. Now that might make a very difficult job for me because what might be better, more sensible, is to do the first fill on the tapered bit, leave it to dry and then go over it with this. But I think I'm going to go and do both at the same time and cross my fingers. So to make this more manageable, although I do have a shelf up there to rest this on, I've just gone from one end of the room with the other and left myself about a foot. So it's not going to be too tight, and then cut a straight edge with some scissors. And yeah, I'm going to have a go. Obviously, I've only got so much time to work with my filler, so I'm going to fold the crease now. Oh, and by the way, this crease also needs to face up to the ceiling when I do put it on a butt join. Right. Oh no, I've gone off track. Let's just redo that. Yeah. Oh, it's done it again. And this needs to be a wetter mix so it soaks into the paper and glues it to the wall. So after watching a few videos, I'm going to add the filler to the wall bit first, get that smoothed out, and then add it to the top. I'm just going to get it on for now, all the way over to the end. This is purely to get it on as quickly as I could, then return to the start and fill the top, but this time with an 8-inch filler blade, so it's longer than the taper, allowing me to get my fill level with the rest of the ceiling. And start pressing the paper from one corner with my fingers before bedding it in with my taping knife. Not only do I want the paper to stick to the wall, I also need to make sure I get any air bubbles out. But while tackling a 4-metre wall all at once, I found my mixture was drying quicker than I was working again, so I had to encourage some sections with more filler to wet it more and press down. And I finished by adding a thin layer over the top, again to soak into the paper and cover it to blend in with the wall. Once I get to the end, I press my filling knife in the corner and pull the tape against it to tear a straight line. Just turn that off and push it back in. Now, while smoothing the filler once more, I have a tip top for you, not to be missed. Yes, that's right. Wear goggles. or buy ones that don't steam up so you don't have an excuse not to wear them. Feel free to send me some recommendations. For the ceiling, I returned back to the 8-inch taping knife for a longer straight edge to fill the taper joint sufficiently and leave to dry overnight. Right, it's another day. It is 0 degrees outside. It's freezing. There's frost, which looks like snow, all over the back garden paddock. Anyway, it's still taking some time to dry, if you can see that. This is the corner tape that I'd also filled over the fibre tape all in one. I didn't want to lose another day. So yes, it still looks dark in places, so it's still a little bit wet, but I'm happy with the job. I'm going to leave that to completely dry until I even start to sand or fill anything, any blemishes. But today is going to be about the butt joins. I've seen online about how people will chamfer the butt joins with a Stanley knife to pre-fill it. So I'm going to do that. That prevents a lot of cracking apparently before taping. And then I can leave that to dry while I do the rest of the corner tapes. So for this one, I'm just going to do what I was going to do in the first place, fill over it with the filler and put the paper tape straight over it and just carry on. And over time, if that one cracks and the other one doesn't, then I will let you know. So before I put corner tape on this side, this is where the coving used to be. And it feels very rough and there's some coving adhesive and I want to get shot of it. So my neighbour, Jeff, brought this round. A little orbital sander attachment for a drill, but it's not any ordinary one. If you come closer, yes, there's a bit of sponge there. This is 120 grit disc that I've put on. But as you put pressure on it, and not too much pressure, and he specifically said don't go too fast, it actually leans. So you can go from one angle, if you see, and it can go like that. Hopefully that'll make it less harsh while I'm sanding the plaster here, because I don't want to damage the plaster obviously, but I know that when I do the corner tape, I'm going to be filling about 100 mil from there to there, and I want a nice finish. So I'm going to start flat in an angle. It's getting better. Now I'm ready for the corner tape on this side of the room. And I'm going to give myself about a foot, so I'm just going to tear that there. Now if you remember yesterday when I corner taped this end, I struggled because I decided to put filler all the way across, then go to the start, and some of it had already dried. So this time I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to fill quite a bit, maybe about 1 metre, and then stick the tape up and then keep repeating until I go at the end. And I don't know if I said before, but when it comes to the paper, it needs to be a wetter mix, not ready mix, unless you add a bit of water to it, because it needs to soak into the paper. So I'm going to start at the bottom. Right, that is more like it. Oh, frick. So I've got a clean edge on this side and I'm going to press it in. What I'm doing is putting some over the top, but also trying to squeeze as much out as I can, but leaving some behind. I'm trying to glue it to the wall. Bliss. So I've realised I don't have enough filler to do the other side, so I'm going to go on to my first butt join. So what I'm going to do is just cover the join, and I've watched lots of videos where they say they make sure the filler is 50 millimetres either side of it. I've got to find out where the fold is, the crease, which I think is, yes, it's that side, and the crease needs to be facing to the sky. So we'll start there, and I can see that dint. I'm just going to double check the paper into the wetter filler all the way along before smoothing it out and doing my best to remove any bubbles so they don't show in the paintwork later. And trim the excess by trapping it with my taping knife and pulling it back to tear. I then add filler, working my way from the centre and outwards, and start building filler over the tape's outer edge with a 3-inch taping knife before upgrading to longer ones to feather it out over a larger area and left them to dry again overnight. Anyone got any ideas of how many nights this is so far? So I've got one side of the room left where I need to add some corner tape. I folded that up, but this time I've run out of the Easy Fill 60 that I was using. So I'm going to use the ready mix, add a splash of water, mix it, try and get the right consistency. Add a bit more. Anyone for ice cream? While using my wetter ready mix, I was pleasantly surprised how good this was. I'd even go as far to say that it was better than the Easy Fill when I added extra water. It soaked better into the paper and it was just generally easier to spread and sand. So it's been quite a few days since I've done this, and what I really want to know is, was it all worth it? Because when you watch a lot of YouTubers doing this process, they never show you the final look after they've painted it, and will it look like an eyesore? So I'm going to show you because it bugs me when I don't see it. So what we need to do is do a mist coat. I'm going to do a 50-50 mix of water and paint. The idea is to thin it out and it can soak into the plaster. So I won't go straight to the roller first. I'll be cutting in the corners with a paintbrush and then going over the whole area with this. It is a woolly roller. So that's one mist coat done. It's starting to look whiter already while it's drying, but we need to leave this for 24 hours. The only issue that I see that I'm not happy with is 2 bubbles here. One there, maybe about 2 inches long, and a small one over there. And I've tried to get the air out with a scraper and then go over it with paint. I'll see what it's like in the morning. There's no point touching it now. But other than that, yeah, it's looking brighter already. It's just, will it look acceptable? Will it look like I know what I'm doing? So I've left that to dry overnight and then added another mist coat just in case we missed anywhere else. That bubble area that I said I'd pressed with my palette knife, well, it worked on the small one over there, but this, now I don't know if you can see it, but the bubble is about 1.5 inches long and goes slightly over the join. What I could do is cut that out, but using another piece of tape over the top of it to get it bang on, slice either side of it. And then once I take that off, I could fill this over the top like before, but I'm trying to avoid that. So what I'm going to try and get away with is just make one little cut, try and pull it back to get some filler underneath, get the air bubble out, and then go over it, and hopefully that will fix it. So I'll do that now quickly. The worst thing about this job is waiting for everything to dry all the time and then coming back to it. And I did use a hairdryer really for little patches. I've got a YouTube schedule to keep up with. And the other thing is, when I've painted over it, I could see the edges of this paper tape. And a lot of people had said sometimes you do need to feather it more. You just don't know until you know. So what I've done, I'm just going to give you a little demo. I'm not actually going to do it. This is still a little bit wet, but all I've done is added a little bit more on my palette knife and started roughly in the middle and gone like that, just so it's feathered from one end to another. Just waiting for that to dry now, sanding it gently, very gently, and then going over it with a final coat. And we are running out of white emulsion, so we might have to nip out and buy some more. So the ceiling has now officially had 2 mist coats and 2 proper coats, and it's fully dry. Now, when I had a look, I did actually see that I'd not filled my tapered areas enough. So yesterday, I had to fill over those areas again and then sand, and now I'm left with the odd bit. So it's really a question of how much time and effort do you want to put into it, because right now we do have lights aiming at the ceiling. I'm not going to have that anyway. If we take those away, you can't see any blemishes. But I can see the odd thing. So as an example, I don't know if you can see it, but I can see a bit of a line dip there. So I'm still going to go over that. I've still got some touch-ups to do. and then I'll leave it to dry and sand it. But I do have a tip. You know, with any of the filler that you mix up and you have leftovers, well, I've been doing this for years, putting them in a takeaway storage container and then leaving it in the fridge for up to 2 weeks. I've roughly found that's how long it lasts. You might have to mix it up a little bit, and it will get thicker as the days goes on, but for this it's perfect. So yeah, don't throw away your takeaway containers. So I'm just going to go over that area there, anything really obvious, and then we'll give it a final coat, maybe 2 more if we feel like we need it. So on and off, this job's taken about 2 weeks because there's so many days where we've had to leave things to dry, we've moved on to other things, I've edited videos, and I know a lot of you said, do not do this yourself, get a plasterer in. And my question to you is, now you've seen this video, would you even attempt this? Would you bother, or would you just rather throw 300 quid at a plasterer and get him to do it in a day or 2, and then you can start painting? Let me know, maybe your time is worth a lot less or more. Anyway, I'm going to leave it for this one because you've seen me do the same thing over again, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one where we either decorate this or maybe install that Ring camera security system. See you next time.